What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another quick little episode here of Lions Latest, going through the latest Detroit Lions news, and we reportedly have a guy that is going to be re-signing with the Detroit Lions, so let's get it started. Welcome, everybody, to our video. Glad you guys are here, and yes, man, we are back with some Detroit Lions news. I'm excited for this one because it's hopefully going to be shorter than a lot of these videos are, so that's just kind of fun. It's like, hey, we get to do something a little shorter. Also, we'll probably be doing a live stream here pretty soon. Not today necessarily, but here soon, so stay tuned for that. But this is some news that I wanted to touch on because it really felt right. A couple of days ago, I was watching the Lions and Packers. I was watching the game back. It was on YouTube, okay? I wasn't watching on like Game Pass. I was just watching on YouTube. It popped up as recommended, and you get locked into it. And there's this one guy, man, and I see him running through two defenders, picking up a first down on, I think it was 3rd and 10, and there's no way he should have picked up that first down. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, Justin Jackson, man. I'm like, he's not on the Lions anymore. That looks like a Lion. I'm like, why is that guy maybe not re-signed? Like, it's just kind of quick thought, popped in my mind, kind of forgot about it. And then I see this news, and it is that according to Aaron Wilson, the Detroit Lions are expected to be bringing back running back Justin Jackson. Now, I don't have necessarily the details to this, but this is what we've heard so far. It's been out there. The information has been put out there that is the case. So I thought this was something that was worth touching on, is Justin Jackson being re-signed by the Detroit Lions. Reportedly, that's supposed to happen because it fit perfectly with that game. Like, this guy just looks like a Lion. I'm like a little bit surprised that this guy doesn't get a shot to come back. I'm like, maybe he signed elsewhere. No, he was an unrestricted free agent, and now he'll be back with the Lions in time for training camp with an opportunity to compete, it sounds like. Now, this running back room, we definitely have depth. I mean, last season, if you remember, we brought in Justin Jackson originally because of Greg Bell's injury, which took place very early in offseason activities. So we brought in Justin Jackson for depth. He performed extremely well. If y'all remember, in the preseason, he played his butt off, and it was like, oh, okay, that guy's gonna have to make the roster, and he ultimately did make the roster, and he stuck around a little bit. Now, he was more of a spot player for the Lions this past season, but I thought a couple of things. First off, going back watching him, I'll throw some clips in here. First off, I think he gives us a little bit closer to the mix of what a DeAndre Swift can. Not necessarily to say that he had all the shake or the shiftiness. I didn't think he had that, or he was like an elite pass catcher, but he did bring a little bit more of that style than maybe a guy like Jermar Jefferson brought at the time, or a Craig Reynolds brings at the time. He brought just a little bit of a different style, which ultimately ended up being good depth for us this past season. Plus, on top of that, his special teams impact, and we know we lost some special teamers this offseason, but specifically the kick returner position. Now, I don't know necessarily that this guy is going to be that for the Lions or that he'll make the roster and get that role, but last year he was our kick returner, and he was really good in that role for the Lions. And I know it's not all him. You have to give credit to the entire unit, but the numbers do speak for themselves. 26.7 was the average yards per kick return. That was 4th in the NFL this past season for Justin Jackson. He had 23 attempts for 613 yards. But yes, 4th in terms of yards per kick return, and that can be crucial, right? So he was one of the top guys in the league in that sense. Now, his entire stats in terms of offensively this last season, there's not a lot of gaudy numbers here. 42 attempts, 170 yards, 4 yards per carry. Now, it's tough when you have this small of a sample size to really focus on the yards per carry because, for example, there was, I believe it was the Bills game, or maybe it was the Jets game. I think it was the Bills game I watched, where there were like 2 negative 4-yard runs in that game, and both of them were blown blocks. So yeah, that's going to throw back your average because you just don't have enough carries to kind of make up for that and maybe get that big play that resets it a little bit. So I don't focus on that too much. It's more so just what did I see when watching the guy back. He had 12 receptions on 19 targets this past year for 101 yards. One thing that I noticed is, according to Pro Football Reference, he's only fumbled once in his career, which I think is pretty awesome. He's currently 27 years old, a young 27. One of the advanced stats stuck out to me here. I think there was a key one, was the 3.17 yards after contact. That stat stuck out to me. That was according to Pro Football Focus. I circled that because I think it really does speak to when you watch him play and you see the way that he fights for extra yards. Not necessarily saying he's breaking tons of tackles, but his ability to pick up yards after contact was very clear when you watch him. So I think that number kind of speaks to it. And then also the 65.5 pass protection or pass block grade that he was given by PFF as well, allowing 0 pressures according to them this past season. And from what I watched, and obviously I didn't see every single, pass blocking rep this past year, but from the ones that I did see, he looked good there. Active eyes, awareness, and then also toughness. And I think that was a big part of his game, even coming out of college, was the toughness, a running back out of Northwestern. So some of the notes that I quickly had that I just wanted to go through here, touch on, show some clips from this past year from Justin Jackson, because I'm excited about this get back for the Lions to bring this player back on board with an opportunity to compete. Because again, if he makes the roster, he could definitely be our kick returner again. He was good there. If he makes the roster and he's just a backup running back or a rotational piece, he's a really, I think, nice backup in terms of skill set to a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, like he was last year to Swift, who is kind of on and off at times. We still do have the Craig Reynolds in there to compete, right? We still do have the Jermar Jeffersons in there to compete. The Greg Bell's going to be coming back. The Mohamed Ibrahim, who was a UDFA signing out of Minnesota. So we have, and of course, David Montgomery. He's going to have a lot of guys to battle against this offseason, so I don't think there's any guarantee that he makes the team, but I think it's definitely worth bringing him back into that mix, because I just get the sense that this guy is going to push everybody else. You're not just going to be handed any type of role as a young guy, because you got to deal with this dude in competition. So I think this is a really nice signing for competition in training camp. It's going to be more and more intriguing position battles, and when I went back and watched him, a couple things that stuck out. I think some similar things to back when he was in college as well. Obviously, he didn't test out incredibly well. He didn't have like, an elite 40 time. It was a 4.52. He had a 38.5-inch vertical, which is pretty awesome in terms of explosiveness there. 13 bench press reps. Just kind of tested out well-rounded when he was coming out of college. But a couple things that stuck out. First off, on the vision side, when we gave him some of those, quick hitter type of runs, the way I like to kind of say it, or like those wham blocks, for example, where you have the tight end crashing down, picking up the DT, offensive lineman springboard to the second level, and it's like a quick hitter punch and go. That kind of thing. I think you saw the play speed and how quickly he gets through those reps as a running back. So I think you got to see that mix. And then also a lot of his rushing attacks seem to come on the more outside zones, wide zones, a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, the zone running, of course, but more of the outside, wide zone, stretch run plays, those kind of things seem to be a little bit more up his alley. And that's why I think he could be good depth behind a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs if he made the team. But then you also had the counter runs, the zone counters, which I think fit his skill set because it allowed him to kind of just follow a block and work off of that. Split zone looks where it was like, hey, one read and then I can cut back. And I think it fit to his skill set where he could be a little bit more of a one-cut runner. I think that's where he looks really good, and I thought some of those schemes fit to him pretty well. Look at the vision side of his game. I think for one, I thought that he bounced occasionally a little bit too often. You have to love, I think, the base that he creates early in his runs. Now, I think he splits a little bit early, and for me, he's a little bit more of a segmented runner than he is a smooth, fluid one to the next to the next. But you do get some of those like double cuts where he sets up defensive tackles, maybe the guy that he's keying on for that run specifically, and because he keeps that wide base, he has that body control to change direction. I think you also see it from a balance standpoint of when he's able to react to misreads. So if he feels like, hey, I'm going to make this cut here, for example, this zone play where he decides that, okay, he's following the lead block of the fullback and he's going to bounce this and it's not there, but you see how he's able to keep that good base under him, and then it allows him to readjust and actually work back the other way and pick up a first down. So it's things like that, keeping that balance and that base under him. He's very quick to read the first defender, and here's one of those examples of a jump cut, but you see the nice little wide base underneath. He's able to plant his foot, jump cut inside. He doesn't always create the most distance, but he's very good with that body control early in the rep, very good at making the first guy miss. You don't get that instant acceleration off the cut like a Gibbs might bring, but again, Gibbs was a first-round pick. Quickness that he had to read the initial lane, I think you saw it there against the Vikings, and then cut back when he scored that touchdown. Read it very quickly, defensive tackle sheds, I don't like that, bounce it, I'm gone. Those kind of things, like the speed at which he was able to read. You also saw the ability to consistently make guys miss in the backfield, make the first guy miss. Very quick to that as well. You could see that he was very aware. For example, if you had like a zone counter and the defensive end is crashing down, his ability to quickly be aware of that and make that guy miss, right? He doesn't just kind of push that off. So I think the quick reads are also pretty noticeable as well. Now, I did see examples like this where you felt like he was kind of stuck on the read defender, and I think that kind of speaks to the segmented side a little bit because he doesn't always seem to see the whole field or how the process is going to go. So sometimes it just looks like he's reading this guy, and then after that it's in this guy. There's not like a full feel as much as it is like react to this, react to this, react to this, and it's kind of a step-by-step instead of very fluid throughout. But he does make the first guy miss a lot of time. But what stands out to me is more so of the contact balance side of the game, and that is the finishing ability. One thing that that I think that he does, because for one, I don't think he's the shiftiest or the best at changing speeds. I don't think he's extremely creative in space, but one thing that I think he does well is he attacks half the man consistently. He's not juking dudes out of their shoes, but he does a really nice job of getting half the man, and I think this really shows up in space, but especially against the initial defender. Like in the front seven defensive linemen, he can make those guys miss, but I think in space you then see the ability to attack half man. The Packers was the best example, I think, for this, the way that he split defenders. And this is something that I think really leans into the yards after contact, because he may not be the strongest guy in the lower body. I think you see between the tackles, consistently falls forward when you watch him, and he runs through arm tackles. Here, it's almost like he widens up his strides a little bit, getting prepared for this contact, and then you're going to see him kind of just sink down. He just continues to drive those legs. I think a big part is guys don't get clean shots on him at the next level, second, third level, because he consistently finds a way to take on half of the man defensively, and I think that's a really good skill set for him. Like, it's not always the most flashy or like, wow, did you see that? But he just like cranks out those tough yards. Love that. And then there's the passing game side of it, and I think this was an area where he did help us a little bit. He didn't step in and was like, you know, like, man, he's theoretic, but he did help us in this area, I think, when we asked him to. I didn't see as many, and I could have missed some of them, see as many of the examples of necessarily him winning in man coverage. Of course, he can do some of those jerk routes, those kind of things, but again, he's not the shiftiest or most elusive type of runner. But I thought in terms of a lot of, you know, the more swing routes or the flats, nothing really super complex to it. Maybe there was like a quick little spot route over the middle of the field, like against the zone where he picked up the first down. So maybe more of your basic route tree, but he was reliable. Like, he followed the ball through his hands. He consistently made sure that he had the ball first. I thought he had a really fluid technique in terms of catching passes that were on his body. Now, things away from his frame, I didn't get as many examples of that. I don't think that was maybe as natural. He likes to kind of align himself with the football, but in that sense, he's very reliable there. You put it, you know, basically on him, he's going to catch the football first, and then he'll make the move after that. So I thought he became reliable in that sense. Even though his hands, I don't think, are anything special, I think he was a reliable pass catcher. And then there was also urgency. Urgency and toughness were the two things. And I think that Packers play sums it up, but it was the urgency to get to the first down. It was the play speed on some of those quick hitting type of runs to understand where the sticks are, and I need to get to that. There was an urgency about him. And finally, you know, pass pro, you got to be reliable there. And again, this season, I thought he showed off the toughness, and then active, scanning eyes. I mean, he would go, there would be reps where he would go through the entire play. He's consistently scanning. It was like you never kind of got like, okay, no one's here, I'm going to kind of fade off a little bit. Like, he was always locked in to trying to find that piece. And then there was toughness on contact. So for me, I think this is a really nice signing. I don't think this is someone that's going to do something insane this year, or I don't know if there's that potential that he's going to just take off all of a sudden. But to push the young guys, I think that's excellent. And I think even if he did make the roster, you know, you're getting a really good kick returner, and you're also getting a guy that proved himself last year. He could be a really nice depth piece, specifically more to the Jahmyr Gibbs side, because I think guys like Craig Reynolds and some of these other pieces that we have can fill in some of the other roles. But I think he filled in well to that for us specifically. And even if he makes the roster, he'll probably continue to be more of a spot player, but you need to have those guys. So for me, I like this signing a lot by the Lions of Justin Jackson if they are going to bring him back, and I'll leave it right there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.